Ladies and gentlemen, please be seated. Today we are very privileged to have some distinguished guests in attendance this afternoon. Our first distinguished guest, the Honorable Pat Roberts, United States Senator from Kansas. Our second distinguished guest, the Honorable Mike Pompeo, Representative from Kansas. Commander, 22nd Air Refueling Wing, Colonel Joel Jackson and his wife, Lynette. Vice Commander, 22nd Air Refueling Wing, Colonel James Dermer and his wife, Laura. Representing the 22nd Command Chief, 22nd Air Refueling Wing, Chief Master Sergeant Vegas Clark. Commander, 184th Intelligence Wing, Colonel Jeff Jordan. Commander, 931st Air Refueling Group, Colonel Mark Larson. I'd also like to extend a very warm welcome to all other group and squadron commanders, honorary commanders, Golden Eagles, chiefs, first sergeants, and friends and family of McConnell Air Force Base. I would now like to introduce our first speaker, the 22nd's own Colonel Joel Jackson. Colonel Jackson is the commander of the 22nd Air Refueling Wing, McConnell Air Force Base, Kansas, one of the Air Force's 3 core tanker wings. The wing provides all-weather, in-flight aerial refueling for U.S. and allied military aircraft, and airlift for global reach projection of troops, equipment, and supplies. Colonel Jackson commands more than 2,800 active duty airmen who support global contingency and conventional operations. Colonel Jackson graduated from the U.S. Air Force Academy in 1992 and is a graduate of the Air War College. He has earned additional master's degrees in aeronautical engineering and administrative management from the University of Washington and George Washington University. Colonel Jackson has flown combat and combat support missions during Operation Southern Watch, Operation Enduring Freedom, and Operation Iraqi Freedom, and served on the Air Staff, the Office of the Secretary of Defense, and the United States Transportation Command. He has also served as an Air Expeditionary Wing Vice Wing Commander and commanded 2 squadrons, including 1 in Southwest Asia. Colonel Jackson is a command pilot with more than 4,100 tanker flight hours. Ladies and gentlemen, Colonel Jackson.
All right, well, thank you everyone for being here. Distinguished guests, you honor us with your presence. Golden Eagles, honorary commanders, friends of McConnell, Jeff and Mark and Paul, thank you guys very much for coming out and supporting everyone here at McConnell Air Force Base. Really proud of the 20th anniversary of the 22nd Air Refueling Wing here at McConnell. When we were getting ready for the speech, we're trying to do a past, present, future, looking through some of the history of the 22nd Air Refueling Wing, and you never know what you're going to find. There was one story that we found about when we deployed to Kenya. We were there supporting AC-130 gunship operations in Somalia, and in June of 1994, we had a 135 there, and the co-pilot went up to do his pre-flight on the airplane, only to be surprised by a vicious enemy in the cockpit, the vicious enemy being about 2,000 angry African killer bees. Some quick thinking took place at that point, or screaming was probably more like it. And when they decided what to do, the pro super, who we all know is the god of the flight line, came up and said that he knew exactly what to do. I always wondered what the pro super had in that bread truck. This pro super had a chemical suit and insect repellent. I don't know why. But so he donned the chemical suit and he went up the ladder with his sprayer, and he went up and he drenched the cockpit with the bee killer. And I can just envision this, him walking back down the crew ladder, taking off the hood of the chemical suit, and kind of going, yeah, plane's crew ready, and just kind of going, your turn now, because you're just nonchalantly fixing anything that comes their way. And even with that delay, the reason I know that they had the chemicals in the bread truck is because that mission still took off on time. But you know what? That's the way we roll here in the 22nd Air Refueling Wing. We make the impossible look possible every single day, make it look easy, and make it bring that capability to the warfighter, no matter what obstacles get in our way. Over the last 20 years, a lot of things have changed, but our role here at the 22nd has stayed constant. Whether it's Northern and Southern Watch in the Middle East, Operation Deliberate Force in Bosnia, Restore Hope in Somalia, or countless other operations around the globe. During Northern and Southern Watch, our tankers patrolled the skies of the no-fly zone established after Desert Storm, and 4 of our wing's airmen were actually injured in Khobar Towers. During that same time, we mobilized to Operations Joint Endeavor and Deny Flight in Bosnia, where we joined 32 countries, flying over 340 missions, refueling almost 3,000 receivers with 17 million pounds of fuel. In Restore Hope in Kenya, our 135s flew 230 sorties, refueling AC-130 gunships, providing search and rescue to support the troops on the ground. Time and time again, our wing has proved that as the nature of the threat shifts, we will be there to meet the challenge, regardless of what that challenge is. And challenges haven't got any easier in the present day. They continue to test and forge how we operate our nation's longest war. Since the beginning of Operation Enduring Freedom and Iraqi Freedom, we've joined the other tanker forces to fly over 153,000 sorties, transferring almost 1.5 billion, with a B, gallons of gas. Just to put that in perspective, that's enough gas to power every car and truck in the United States for more than 4 days. That massive effort was fueled by you, the 22nd Air Refueling Wing. What a difference you make. Your awesome work has won us the Meritorious Unit Award 4 times, showing that our commitment is eternal, past and present. But that being said, we're not going to sit back and reminisce on those accomplishments, because there are new hurdles to cross. And if lessons have taught us anything, is that we will continue to go into unpredictable futures. This unpredictability will continue to force us to adapt, innovate, and modernize, all in a tight fiscal environment. At the same time, our nation begins a period of transition from 12 years of war in the Middle East to strategic shift in the Pacific. Our wing will find itself at the forefront of that shift. Ask any pilot flying over the Pacific, and they'll tell you it's a lot of empty space. There's not a whole lot of places to stop for gas. The KC-46 will allow the Air Force to continue to create islands in the sky and build bridges to our enemy's doorstep. Our global reach and air superiority will continue to ensure the balance of power firmly rests in America's hands. The 2 constants over the last 20 years have been the high quality of men and women in the United States Air Force and our 22nd Air Refueling Wing, and the outstanding support we receive from our local community. Our equipment will change as technology changes, but our commitment to excellence and belief that good enough, just frankly, isn't good enough is what continues to make our wing great. But that greatness wouldn't be possible without the support we've received from the local community, who donates their time and money and efforts to ensure that members of the 22nd are well taken care of, both home and abroad. We are truly blessed by that world-class support. So I want to congratulate everyone, the community and the wing, as we've made our 20th year. But I want to challenge you to all to stay vigilant and keep the faith as we fly over the horizon to meet the trials that are going to meet us in the next 20 years, whether those challenges are budget cuts, terrorism, or African killer bees. Thank you.
Thank you, Colonel Jackson, for those remarks. I would now like to introduce our second speaker, the Honorable Mike Pompeo, representative from Kansas. Congressman Mike Pompeo is a second-term U.S. Congressman from Kansas's 4th District. As a teenager, Congressman Pompeo enrolled at the United States Military Academy at West Point. He graduated first in his class from West Point in 1986, and then served as a cavalry officer patrolling the Iron Curtain before the fall of the Berlin Wall. He also served with the 2nd Squadron, 7th Cavalry in the 4th Infantry Division. After earning a law degree, Congressman Pompeo returned to his family's roots in South Central Kansas and founded Thayer Aerospace, where he served as CEO for more than a decade, providing components for commercial and military aircraft. He then became president of Century International, an oilfield equipment manufacturing, distribution, and service company. Congressman Pompeo serves on 2 major committees: Energy and Commerce, which oversees energy, healthcare, manufacturing, and telecommunications, and the House Intelligence Committee, which oversees America's intelligence gathering efforts. Congressman Pompeo and his wife Susan have been active leaders in the community and are both involved in many activities in support of Susan's alma mater, Wichita State University. Ladies and gentlemen, Congressman Mike Pompeo.
Well, good afternoon, everyone. It is great to be here. It's always great when they invite an Army guy to an Air Force facility. It's quite an honor to be here to celebrate this 20th anniversary. Colonel Jackson, your remarks were spectacular. 20 years makes the wing almost old enough to drink. Yeah. This is a very special place and a very special unit. I've been involved out of McConnell Air Force Base for a long time. When I was running a small business here in South Central Kansas. I was a member of an organization called Friends of McConnell. I worked with the chamber here, and I did it because I loved the men and women who were here. It's great still to be out in the store and run into someone who's out here on this facility and working hard, doing the right thing for America each and every day. They're often not Kansans by birth, but have adopted this community in a way that is incredibly important to all of us, and I thank each and every one of you for that. It is the case that we were thrilled to see that the new tankers are going to be stationed here. The community worked hard to make that happen. You all worked hard to make that happen. It is great for Kansas to have the new tankers coming here first, and I'm proud of that. And it's important to us in Kansas, but they didn't come here because of that. That's not why the Air Force chose to put that equipment at this place. They chose to put that equipment at this place because of the men and women who are sitting in front of me. Because you all have executed so well, because they know that the mission that is run here at McConnell Air Force Base is run indeed with excellence. Each and every day, men and women working hard to make sure that everything goes flawlessly, because you know, as I do, that there are real important, critical things at stake, often people's lives. If the mission is performed poorly, the risk increases. And you all have behaved in a way that the Air Force said, nope, we want to make sure that the newest, the latest, and greatest equipment comes to that very special place at McConnell Air Force Base. I've had the chance over the last year or so to travel around the world a bit in my role as a member of the House Intelligence Committee. I've had a chance to be on the ground. I've seen some of you flying your mission. I'm always so proud to see a Kansas-flown crew, or a Kansas-flown airplane, or a Kansas crew performing their mission. Every now and again, I do see them in a bar. That tells you I was there too. But it's a place and a time in our nation's history that I think it's sometimes easy to forget. We talk about the end of this longest war, and I'm glad that we're able to bring a lot of folks back home. I think that's a great thing. But you all know the truth. You all know that the threat, while different, is not gone. Look, we saw a terrorist threat right here, right on our own airport in Wichita, Kansas. We saw somebody who was reaching out to Al-Qaeda in the Arabian Peninsula, trying to do harm here in the United States. I spent this past weekend time with some foreign ministers, their equivalent of their Secretary of States from countries around Europe. They are incredibly frightened by the continued expansion by Russia and its reach, the way it's touching out into places like Georgia into Ukraine. Flying flights, you all would know about the sorties like they've never flown them before, probing in Norway, up along the northern part of our globe. And so I grew up as a Cold War. I grew up, my unit patrolled what was then East German and Czech border. It was great fun running around as a 23-year-old young guy with some great NCOs, with my tanks, having just a blast, watching the communists sit in their towers, fearful of American power. And that Soviet Union is no more, but I will tell you, the leadership in Russia regrets that and would love to do everything they can to make it different. And you all, the power that you can help us project around the world, causes them to pause. We all know, too, the threats that are in the Middle East. You see it certainly with the threat from al-Qaeda, but we have a not-too-friendly party sitting in Iran who would love nothing more than to have a nuclear weapon. And while we don't have to get into any tactics or any operations, we all know this: the capacity to strike in places that are far away, all around the world, can only happen with a country like the United States, and only happen with the men and women like you who provide the reach and the capacity for us to put hard metal in bad places every day. And so I thank you for that. You know, 20 years is a good long run. We know throughout history that however things change, 20 years any place doing anything does not guarantee that next 20 years. Only good people working hard to do the right thing every day can do that. And so from the bottom of my heart and on behalf of all of the people of South Central Kansas, thank you for what you do every day. Thank you for the folks that you help in our community. I run into your kids in our schools too when I'm out there. They're out there being part of the community, living a life that helps us here in South Central Kansas. We will succeed. Know that we have your back. Know that we are counting on you to continue to perform your mission, and know that we are eternally grateful for all that you do. Thank you all very much. I hope God blesses each and every one of you. Thank you.
Congressman Pompeo, thank you very much for those words. I would now like to introduce our last speaker for this afternoon, the Honorable Pat Roberts, United States Senator from Kansas. Senator Pat Roberts is a third-term U.S. Senator representing the great state of Kansas. Senator Roberts is a fourth-generation Kansan, born in Topeka on April 20th, 1936. He is the son of the late Wes Roberts, chairman of the Republican National Committee under President Dwight Eisenhower. His great-grandfather, J.W. Roberts, founded the Oskaloosa Independent, the state's second oldest newspaper. Senator Roberts earned his journalism degree from K-State and proudly wears the purple to this day. Following graduation in 1958, Roberts served in the U.S. Marine Corps for 4 years, then worked as a reporter and editor for several Arizona newspapers. He joined the staff of Kansas U.S. Senator Frank Carlson in 1967. In 1969, Roberts became administrative assistant to 1st District U.S. Congressman.
We could probably cut to the chase here pretty quick.
Ladies and gentlemen, Senator Pat Roberts.
Right, thank you. Thank you for attempting to read the whole damn thing. But you missed the best part. I am the senior Marine in the entire Congress, so Semper Fi. Army strong. Go Air Force. Colonel Jackson, it's a pleasure to share this celebration with all of you today, more especially with my good friend and colleague and another veteran, too few who serve in the Congress, Mike Pompeo. Thank you to our wing commander, Colonel and Mrs. Jackson, for hosting this a very fine event. Mike, thank you so much for your remarks and your constant support for McConnell and our armed services, and more especially your service on the House Intelligence Committee. I wish the Senate Intelligence Committee, of which I used to be chairman, was as aggressive as your outfit over there. And I know you can't say anything about it either, but that's beside the point. To the airmen here today, thank you for your service, your sacrifices, and your commitment to our country. Special thanks to the families who have given our airmen the vital support and the morale they need to keep our nation safe. A special thank you to the Golden Eagles, the friends of McConnell, and to everyone in and around Wichita and Derby who have helped make McConnell an installation of excellence within the Air Mobility Command and the United States Air Force. It is an honor, a true honor and a privilege to be part of this celebration today, making 20 years of fueling, fueling freedom. 20 years. Congratulations to all those men and women of the Air Force who have called McConnell home over the last 20 years, and especially those who have come back to live in Wichita. The Air Force's announcement last fall, marking McConnell as the preferred alternative to serve as the first main operating base to fly next-generation tankers, as a confirmation of the superb job that the 22nd Wing, in conjunction with the 931st Air Refueling Group, is doing with their tanker mission. But also helpful and crucial was the historic and unique relationship of the communities in and around Wichita that have really helped cultivate this great base. This relationship has been in existence since 1941, when the National Guard activated the first military unit at the Wichita Municipal Airport. No, I was not a member of that group, but I do remember the history. So today, this bridge between the military and the community is maintained by the friends of McConnell and 7 very special friends: the Golden Eagles, Wayne Roberts, Pat Gallagher, Robin Spurrier, Bob Duell, Keith Lesher, and Raoul Hodgson. And because of McConnell's superior command leadership and the fact that so many have made Wichita their home following their career in the Air Force, McConnell is truly a Kansas legacy. So today, McConnell is just not a tanker base. It is the premier super tanker base in the entire country. The over 4,000 active duty, reserve, and civilian team members that make up McConnell are providing the most fundamental mission to our success as a military fighting force with unprecedented air superiority. The 22nd is providing global reach and fueling freedom. The thought occurred to me, how many remember Patton and this flag? The movie Patton, George C. Scott. I'm prompted to say that no pilots of a tanker ever flew into harm's way with any intention of giving their life for their country. They instead have flown into harm's way to provide warfighters the capability to make sure their enemies give their life for their country. I can see a lot of you never saw Patton. So when you officers, airmen, and friends of McConnell work with us, Mike and myself, to help McConnell remain the premier air refueling base, Congressman Pompeo, myself, along with the rest of the Kansas delegation, stand at the ready. Let me just say that I know the Department of Defense understands that if Pompeo and Roberts are calling in behalf of McConnell, it has been thoroughly vetted through McConnell's leadership and supported by the community and likely already translated to the Pentagon. For over a decade, I have fought long and hard to ensure that our Eisenhower-era tankers were finally replaced. This has been no easy task. During my 10 years on the Senate Armed Services Committee, I was continually championing the Air Force's request for a replacement of our aging tankers. Just a couple of stories, and I apologize for this. Mike kept within his 10 minutes. I cut off, though, my, resume, biography, what the hell ever it is, but at any rate, so, cut me a little slack here. But I went into a pharmacy in Alexandria, Virginia, and the pharmacist came to me and said, "So you're Senator Roberts," had to be on the prescription, I guess, "and you serve on the Armed Services Committee." I didn't know how she knew that. And she says, "Do you know that by the time we get a new tanker, these planes will be 70 years old, and that the pilots of these planes will not even have been born yet?" I said, yes, ma'am, I know that. That's the very point I'm trying to make in the Armed Services Committee. And she said, my husband is a pilot, and that plane is not safe. He will make it as safe as possible, but it certainly isn't as safe as it should be. She says, what are you going to do about it? And I said, well, I'll try my very best. So then I asked the Air Force in surreptitious ways to bring me a part of a wing of a tanker that was completely rusted out. I won't tell you where we got it. And I dragged that damn thing into the Armed Services Committee and said, now look, this is ridiculous. This is what we're facing. I didn't realize at the time there were other things to follow at that particular wonderful speech that I made, but I've been there. Then I would just, you actually have that all written down instead of me just telling you that. Okay. At any rate, and this past October, well, let's go back to 2011 when they made the announcement that finally we were getting off the dime with regards to new tankers. And this past October, when Mike and I were jumping up and down, he a little higher than me, when the Air Force announced that McConnell was the preferred alternative for supporting the first bed down of the KC-46 tankers, simply great news. What better place for these new birds than the aviation capital of the world? Let me just say a couple of other things in behalf of McConnell and the great leadership that you have here. I do not remember the commander's name, I'm sorry, but we didn't have a bridge between the busy street and the base, and then also base housing. And the local commander was going around with the Golden Eagles trying to raise money here to build a bridge. Remember that? And I said, don't do that. We can do better than that. It shouldn't be the base commander's job to go around and ask for private donations to build a bridge. I thought that was only the Marine Corps that had to do that, but at any rate, I said, we can do this. And the commander said, how? I said, 2 words, Ted Stevens. Well, Ted Stevens flew the Flying Tigers back in World War II. And when you said Air Force, it was usually yes. At any rate, I told him about the plight of McConnell, school kids trying to dart in between cars. I hope it wasn't that bad, but at any rate, that's how I told him it was. And bingo, we got the bridge. And so that worked out real well. One other quick story. I think it was, Mike was in my first term. I didn't know any better. And I learned that the wing was going to be moved to South Dakota. Why on earth would you move the most competitive and the wing that performed better on virtually every criteria that we have in the Air Force than any other wing in the entire country to South Dakota? You think it's cold here now, going up to South Dakota. Unbelievable. So I raised an issue with that, and then it came in the mail from a purloined piece of paper a description as to why that was happening. And there was the announcement, and then there was a little square right off to the side, and then there were the following words. Let us not forget that South Dakota is the home state of the majority leader of the Senate at that particular time, whose name shall be, well, we won't mention Tom Daschle's name. So I looked at that and I said, politics is getting in the way of performance and criteria and all the testing that we have to go through? And that indeed was the case. Secretary Rumsfeld, this goes back a ways, was coming before the committee. I let Liaison know how I felt about it, and I let Liaison know I was going to ask the Secretary of Defense exactly what the heck was going on. And before the hearing started, the Secretary came to me, asked me, or well, he didn't, but obviously their liaison did, so I went back to talk to Don Rumsfeld. Well, you don't talk to Don Rumsfeld, you listen to Don Rumsfeld, but at any rate, I said, this is ridiculous. And he says, I owe you an apology. That's a pretty big deal from the Secretary of Defense. And so I said, well, yes, sir, you do. And more especially, you owe it to all the folks that are connected with our wing out there at McConnell. And we've been promised, if it means anything, that when the tankers are being built, that we will be the base for the tankers. And he said, well, now that we have that covered and you have my apology, I hope that, that this subject will not be brought up at the hearing. And I said, well, sir, it will not be brought up at the hearing using the adjectives and adverbs that I plan to use, but yeah, I'm going to bring it up. The secretary was not amused, and so when it came to my turn, I held up the piece of paper and I said, instead of criteria, and my question to you, Mr. Secretary, is who on earth would put in a slot for somebody to read, let us not forget, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And I find that indefensible. And so he took it, you know, pretty good, and he said, Senator, thank you very much, we'll look into it. 3 days later, in my office, why Christine buzzed me, and I said, yeah, Christine. He said, there's a 3-star Air Force general here to see you. It didn't click until all of a sudden I realized, oh my gosh. And so I went out to get him and I said, hi, I'm Senator Pat Roberts. And he says, oh, I asked the secretary during the hearing, this is the whole thing. I said, what doofus would have put that down in that space? And so I said, hi, I'm Senator Pat Roberts. He said, hi, I'm Lieutenant General Doofus. And I said, well, General, I'm going to take it for granted that it wasn't particularly your orders to put that in that space. He said, no, it was not. And I said, could I ask you, perhaps confidentially, who that might have been? He says, no, sir, you cannot. And that was that. So from bridges to moving wings to getting the new tanker, we've always been there, and I'm talking about we, the Kansas delegation. And I'm so happy to have by my side Mike Pompeo, Army Strong, and a senior Marine in the United States Congress working in behalf of all the folks who make our global reach real and our national security real. God bless you all. Thank you so much for what you do. People in the Congress do have your back, regardless of what you think or see on the news. Bless your heart. Thank you.
Senator Roberts, thank you for your stories. Thank you for fighting for us. We wouldn't be here if it wasn't for your efforts. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in a final round of applause and appreciation for all of our distinguished guests who have taken their time to join us this afternoon.